Well, welcome to Etchin Live. This is the bilingual channel, and on the Etchin world right now, we are broadcasting something live. Actually, just finished. It's about Hong Kong and oil. But for the English channel that we have now, this is a little bit technical. As we know, Hong Kong is going through a big transition, and a lot of fund managers are looking into alternatives to set up their investment company outside of Hong Kong, namely Singapore, UK, and Canada. Now, today we have Darren Chu, who is the founder of Tradable Patterns, to share with us a new platform, or I should say a new fund structure that is quite easily to be set up in Singapore. Well, Darren, back a few years ago, we have something called the XM Fund Manager in Singapore, and that lured a lot of Hong Kong fund managers to set up shop in Singapore. So this VCC, variable capital, is variable capital
company,
right? What is it? So we have 7 minutes to talk about the concept. So here we go, Darren.
Thanks, Ed. The variable capital company framework was introduced by the MAS, the local Singapore regulator, just mid-January of last year, right before COVID. And it is really meant to help redomicile fund management companies which have been set up offshore in jurisdictions like BVI or maybe in Hong Kong back into Singapore, or to get emerging fund managers who aren't licensed yet to get covered under the licenses that are available here in Singapore, but at a cheaper cost than it would be overseas. So historically, many of these companies would have gone offshore. And this really is a program by the Singapore government to basically give more business to the tax advisors here, fund administrators, accountants, corporate secretarial providers, and so forth. So that's it in a nutshell. There's a government grant that can be applied for, which basically pays back up to 150,000 Sing dollars in qualified expenses. Okay, so with any of those types of providers, which I mentioned before, involved in getting the VCC set up to 70% of that amount, capped at 150,000, goes back to you. So with one of the companies I'm partnered up with, basically we're offering such a service of setting up a VCC structure along with sub-funds that come under a VCC. So the grants that are available right now are capped at up to 3 VCCs per fund manager. So the fund management company that I'm involved with, not Tradable Patterns, but I have another business that I'm a CIO for. We basically provide these kind of setups, ranging from getting the legal entity set up through APRA, the business registrar here. It's like the biz file that you have in Hong Kong. And once that is set up, then it really only takes a couple months to get the VCC status, depending on how complex it is. But yeah, the idea is that it can be done cheaper, because especially if you have an umbrella VCC where you have many sub-funds that are set up underneath that umbrella VCC, some of those costs incurred for the first sub-fund, it basically can be amortized or spread across all the other sub-funds that get set up. So the cost of setting up each additional sub-fund falls as you have more set up. So that's really the beauty of it. And I'll pass it back over to you, Ed. I'm sure you have some questions.
Okay, sure. Now, as you know, due to the political situation in Hong Kong, as I alluded to earlier, people are looking for alternatives. Even back in 2003, Singapore government made it easy for fund managers to set up in Singapore. At that time, it's called the exempt fund manager. You don't really need a lot of capital, but also they don't want you to use the exempt fund manager if your fund is very large. So for this VCC, is it also good for smaller startup? Let's say if they have 5 million US of tradable assets, is that the size they're looking for? But also you could include real estate. You could be running a long short. You could be running a convertible arbitrage fund, all under one umbrella. Is that the way to do it?
Okay, so the licensing is separate. The VCC framework, it basically involves the registration of, you can think of it as a company. So it's similar to incorporating just a, I guess, here in Singapore it would be a private limited, but then there's a new legal entity structure called the VCC, Variable Capital Company.
Okay.
And so the licensing through the MAS, that's separate. So the company
the exempt fund manager is still the exempt fund manager, still have to go through the MAS process. Yeah. So
the MAS has actually been trying to pressure a lot of the less active or smaller exempt fund managers out of the market. The requirements actually for being a fund manager are higher than they've ever been in Singapore. And so the capital requirements, for instance, if you want the kind of license that this partner company that I operate as CIO for has, which is a venture capital fund management license company, we are limited to allocating only into venture capital, as in private equity. We can't actually invest into listed equity above a certain percentage of our total AUM. So we're capped at 20% of our AUM invested into listed securities. And if you want to talk about crypto, then crypto would be considered a gray area, but it, by all, most accounts would fall under, or, for, I guess, conservative purposes, you would assume that it is deemed a listed security. So we would cap any crypto exposure to 20% of the total AUM. And if we're not doing crypto, then it would be 20% allocated to, for instance, listed equities. And the rest, 80%, would have to be in VC type equity, private equity. Now, there is another license that the hedge fund managers would pursue, and that is called the RFMC. So with the RFMC, Registered Fund Management Company, you can have up to 30 accredited investors and institutional investors, right? AIs or entities. And you're capped on the AUM at 250 million AUM. And so there is a higher tier license called the CMS, Capital Market Service License, and that actually allows you, well, first of all, there are two tiers of the CMS, to my understanding. There basically is a retail tier, and then there's the non-retail tier. So the retail tier would be what retail brokerages would try to go apply for, and then there would be, I guess, the institutional brokerages which don't have that need to reach out to the retail, and so they go for the other tier. But yeah, what I would say is that exempt fund manager opportunity that used to exist, I haven't kept up with the latest on that, but I don't believe it's available. I mean, you can't apply for that status right now. So you would apply for either the RFMC or the CMS, basically, currently.
Okay. We are running a little bit out of time. So for VCC, Variable Capital Company, is there a website of sorts developed by, I don't know, like the regulatory body from Singapore?
Yeah, the MAS has some material on that, and I could share the link with you after it, and then you could post it. It's also described in a lot of detail by every single major accountancy out there. PwC, Deloitte, they all have PDFs online, very, very easily searched. If you just type VCC Singapore, these documents just pop up right away. So that's it. That's what the VCC is in a nutshell.
Okay, so it's VCC Singapore for those who want to Google it, but we will post the link. If you just click on the description box from today's program, you will see the link. Thank you so much, Darren. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Ed. See you again.